here was, I don't know if they're here anymore, but was asking a question at the last session and they said, hi, my name is blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, wow, you don't really get that at conferences, right? So I was giving Danny feedback on I sat down with a bunch of people, which I'll encourage you all to do. If you go to a conference and, I think a lot of us are developers. So a lot of us are maybe a little bit more antisocial or introverted, I guess. I call myself antisocial, introverted than others. But, there's this magic of just like sitting down next to somebody you don't know or people that you don't know. But when I sat down next to them, I said, oh my gosh, you guys just have your first name. You don't have your last name. How's anybody going to find you? And I said, Danny, was that not in your podcast? Like, he just did this podcast on like what you should know to prepare for your first conference. But then I realized I didn't have my Twitter handle on here either. So I failed. Yeah, right. I know. So anyways, welcome. We're ready to go, I think. Yes, we are ready to go. Okay. So welcome everybody. I'm going to pull up my notes right here really quickly. Okay. Can I get started or should I wait? Are we good to go for the live stream? Okay, perfect. Hi, everybody on the internet. All right. So thank you. Right there. Okay. Yeah. I was talking over there. I was like, there's got to be a camera here somewhere, right? So anyways, welcome. Thank you so much for coming. This is a leadership panel. I'm so excited. My name's Tracy. I'm the CEO of a company called This Labs. I feel like at this conference, I'm known as Danny's boss, which is also kind of weird. But anyways, I'm so excited again to be hosting this leadership panel. If you want to find me on X, I'm at Lady Leet. And then on LinkedIn, I'm Tracy S. Lee. And I'll let my fellow panelists introduce themselves.
Cool. Thank you, Tracy. And good afternoon, everybody. Excited to be here. My name is Julian Macagno or Julian, whatever is easier to stick on your mind. Today I work at Docusign. I'm a director of product, overseeing our developer experience. So today Docusign has a large community of developers from customers, partners that are integrating Docusign. And I'm sure many of you hopefully have been a loyal customer or user, but excited to be here. Based out of Dallas. I'm from Argentina originally. So I've been here for about 10 years. Yeah, excited to be here. And thank you for the opportunity.
Howdy. I'm Erik Weibust. I'm also local. I lead the e-commerce business at Legends, which is a sports and hospitality business. I am on Twitter as well, Erik Weibust, really original, right? Not like Tracy. But anyhow, happy to be here and talk to you all. And if you have anything to add, I'd love to chat afterwards. Or if you have questions or feedback, I'd love to hear it. Maybe connect on LinkedIn or Twitter. Thanks. I also lead the Dallas Java user group. So some of you, I've seen a handful of you, javamug.org, or you can find us on Meetup. We meet the second Wednesday of every month right here on Legacy and Plano at the offices of Improving Enterprises. So maybe you can join us in October.
Of course. Thank you. These guys are so great. I think one of the things I love about the Dallas ecosystem is all the executives I meet here are just willing to hang out and chill. Jerry, I see you over there. Alex is pretty cool too, if you caught his last talk, but they're all just, everybody's just wants to hang out, which is so cool because I'm a part of so many different local communities and it's not like that everywhere. So Dallas is very fortunate to sort of have that sort of vibe. So we're going to get into the panel questions here and feel free to ask questions as we go along. So one of the, Alex kind of framed some of this in his talk. He was talking about sort of the perception of IT or technology, a lot of times being a cost center, right? Like a lot of times C-suite is like, well, we're always trying to reduce costs. We're always trying to reduce costs here. We're trying to reduce costs. I think a lot of times when you are in engineering, you sort of have to justify your place. So, a lot of times when there are things that let's say you all working in engineering, product and design, uh, have to justify something, or you know that something is good for the organization and you have to justify that. And again, executives are looking at this as a cost center, not as like sort of like an innovation place. How do you justify that if there's not a clear, immediate ROI currently on paper? How do you frame that conversation?
Cool. Thank you. So one, as you probably heard, I'm in product. I was an engineer many years ago, and I'm probably in a galaxy far, far away. But I'll do my best, maybe in the context of kind of like the role that I play today. And I've been in product managing like developer first products for about 15 years now. And one of the things that I learned along the way is, as you're like building a business case, trying to pitch for incremental investments, you know, the metrics, right, or the outcomes that I was focused on or passionate about were not directly like correlating to like your CEO or your CFO, or sometimes even your CPO, right? That maybe is not so attached, in this case, to developers, right? I think about dev satisfaction. I think about, time to the hello world. I think about like dev signups. I think about kind of like, incremental integrations. None of that correlates with them. So my point here is, as you're thinking about kind of like asking for support on either investments, it's like focus more on like the outcomes that really matter to them. And again, what are the things that matter to them, especially if you're talking about like CIO, CFO? What are the things that, if you're a public company, what are the things that actually report to the street? What is it? Sales, churn, right? What are the things? How can you actually connect the things that you're driving to those things, right? And the reason why I mentioned like from a context of like developer first products, right? It's like a lot of times, especially for at least, like for example, where I'm at right now at Docusign, the biggest value that developers bring is really for like our highest and most important, like and biggest customers, right? Thinking of like enterprise, thinking about like, big, ISVs, right? And a lot of those like investments that you're actually putting in initially, right? A lot of times to actually take time to actually get that return, in the sense of, hey, just because you're putting an API out there and it's being tested and used by, for example, developers, the returns, right, or the value, right, and the things that actually connect to like that really high up in the executive chain are going to take a lot of time, right? So, if you've talked to any enterprise developer, right, getting on their roadmap probably takes 6 months, right, between the time you engage with them, between the time you understand the problem that they need to be solving, how the thing that you has actually takes time, how you can actually, and how it actually reflects some value, right, that you can actually attribute to. And not you also think about like churn, right? So again, my 2 cents here is like always try to like connect the thing that you're doing. Don't be selfish and think about, hey, kind of like the outcome or the activity that matters to you, but more about thinking, try to translate that to the mind of the executives.
IT isn't always a cost center. There's a cost. Sometimes you might be in I don't know, this just pops in my mind, like in printing services, which is not strategic, or it could be, depending on where you're at. But my first advice is, if you are in something that's commoditized, change the narrative. Like, know the outsource options in what they offer and find a way to do it better internally. Connect with your business, right? Like, at all levels, as leaders, we clearly need to connect with our business partners. But if you're a developer in here, know the analyst that works for the business and know what matters to them, and then know your competitors. And so share with your team and your manager and your managers how you can do things better, what the competitors are doing. And I summarize, and by the way, in a lot of this, I summarize as know the business, know what your company does, and what they're trying to do, what the business goals are, and know their strategy, and take that to heart with what you're doing with stories and features and bug fixes. We had a business, know the business problems, right? My whole department was created. We do e-commerce, and we had a number of sites that we ran on Shopify, and our business had a great problem. They had a site that had requirements that they couldn't do on Shopify, and they managed that in the business. So they came to technology and said, "We need some help. Can you help?" And you always say, "Yes, we can help." And we built a platform and extended a platform you can sign up with without drop-in names, and there's great ones out there. But we extended the platform and built a sports and hospitality e-commerce system, and we knew our business problems, and we knew what they paid Shopify and where the costs were. And so we worked with the business to then work with Stripe, our payment partner, to find a way to get great rates. And then we had 70 sites we ran on Shopify. And when you can cut their costs where they were disappointed to have to invest in this platform, well, then when they find out you can make it cheaper to run those sites on the investment, it's a win-win. And so where it's a cost, it ends up making the business a little more profitable, and they appreciate that. So anyhow, that all happens when you know the business, you know their strategy, you understand what they're paying in other places. So.
Thank you. The things that you guys are talking about actually is, I think it also depends on what type of organization you're in, right? So, I grew up in the Silicon Valley. A lot of our customers are in the Silicon Valley. And, I run this leadership podcast, and I was talking to somebody a few months ago, and they were talking about being a part of a big tech company. So when you're a part of a big tech company, right, it's like, it's funny because the maintenance parts, right? The sort of like, oh, we need to maintain the system that's working. And, maybe it's contributing to 90% of our revenue, but then we're spending, 50x on innovation. So all of the budget goes towards the innovation and engineering, and everybody is like clapping and this and that about innovation, and they're spending so much money on this, and, it's not contributing to any of the revenue. And then everybody who's maintaining all the systems that are actually making all the money for that business, is not celebrated as much. So that really resonates with me, right? Like, I think, again, sometimes a lot of people look at, IT or technology, and they forget that, especially people who are maybe executives who are more business focused, not technology forward executives, they forget that, like, well, this is a SaaS company, and, this is kind of how you make all your money. So, so I think that also comes with the culture of leadership, right? Like, you have to sort of, celebrate everybody equally, because you don't want to, the people who, again, who are running those systems, you don't want them to feel like not valued, right? So, there's sort of a follow-up question to that, which is, how do you balance the roadmap between sort of like new revenue generating features and then sort of defense, which is stability, security, maintenance, right? I mean, developers, we often talk about tech debt. And I still remember when I had my first startup, I wasn't technical. And my CTO would always come to me and say, well, do you want it the fast way, where we're going to have to incur tech debt, or do you want it the right way? 1 day or 2 weeks, what do you want? And I'd always say, well, obviously 1 day. And so you just don't understand that as a non-technical person, right? I didn't understand that until I became a developer. But how do you balance that? And how do you actually ask for those things that are going to be super important from a maintenance perspective?
Yeah, no. I think, going back to my product mindset, right? I think first thing to me is like, it's only one room. It's only one backlog, right? And it's like, so as you're, when I think about tech debt, when I think about, the need for upgrading library X, right? Versus working on X new incremental feature, et cetera, right? I think it is a partnership in the sense of like, product needs to weigh in on all these things as much as they do like on upgrading to a new stack or adjusting X functionality versus investing in X capability. Just like engineering needs to like weigh in the sense of, hey, what thing matters more than the other, right? So it's in the end, it's all about like, hey, how do we articulate in terms of like why it matters? Like, why does it matter to actually move, to address this technical debt, right? To your point, Tracy, you may, based on what you're working on, let it be product, infrastructure, et cetera, depends on where you are in the life cycle. You may be willing to take, other sacrifices or say, hey, we're just starting off, new product, low adoption. You're willing to actually take more risks. With more adoption that you get, adoption comes with a price, right? In the sense of, hey, as customers and users are actually using your product, you got their trust, but they also expect a commitment from you, which maybe means that you kind of like need to balance a little more of these things off. So I guess my TLDR here is like, hey, I look at things as one one backlog, and the importance of like partnership in terms of, hey, defining what you invest in and why it matters and how it actually correlates to like the bigger outcomes that you're looking to achieve is kind of like a source of truth. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I already said I work at a sports and hospitality company, and by the way, we are a cost center, right? We make our business. Our business is running stadiums and experiences, right? Pro sports, Taylor Swift concerts. Tech is not where the money comes from. But I'll use a sports analogy. If, investing is offense, I will say defense wins games, right? And so if you own systems, if you're building systems, right? Things that I always preach, when I inherited this platform and this team, the business had some problems with releases that would cause pain. And so we stopped releasing and dug into the problems, but we focus on two big things, and that's availability and return to service. And, I don't get into all the agile delivery metrics and velocity. I care about two things, and that's availability, or the opposite, pain minutes or outage time, and then how quick we get things back up. And as I was looking at my watch, we had a release this morning and there was an issue and I was getting updates. And so I apologize. But anyhow, that if your business is selling things or moving things and your system's not up, you're not doing the value add and there's an issue, right? We all want to add bells and whistles and spinners and blinkers or whatever to the site or to the business. But the fundamental business is what you're running. And so be online. And if you're not, get online quickly. Those things really matter to me. And I think will matter to your business partners is, you're learning their business. The business is selling or moving. And again, you've got to have your systems up. So to me, that's where I start. Focus on that. If you have technical story points, spend them on that, how to fix those things, and your business will appreciate it.
I love that. Thank you. It reminds me of one of our customers. They're an education platform, and it's run by a few executives who are all non-technical. And I still remember the first time we did a release with them. They're like, "Wow, that went smoothly." There were like no issues, and they so weren't used to that, right? And so I think perception, like Alex in his last talk, like mentioned this idea of, making sure you have your team creates a perception of value add with the business. But Eric and Julian, again, you guys work. I mean, Julian, I don't know if you consider like Docusign. I feel like is like it is a tech company, but it's like a tech enabled company too. Do you know what I'm saying? And Eric, do you feel that way, or do you feel like you're like is it similar to Google, or would you feel like it's more like document focused and contracts and fintech finance type focused?
I hope not. It's already left.
Well, but so but like, Eric, right? You're talking about like, look, this isn't the business, like sort of like the tech runs, like, well, that's not part of your core business, if you will, right? So just like the conversation I was just having of this like non-technical company that we sort of helped, and then okay, all of a sudden the releases are going well, and we sort of had to like create a seat at the table with the executives, and so a lot of times, top down, right? It's like, okay, well, executives are like, well, we want to solve this problem. So we're going to figure out how to solve the problem. And then we're going to bring it to these people, these, the EPD department, and like have them solve that problem. But a lot of times when it goes down to that, and engineers or product doesn't have like sort of a seat at the table, then, we all know that that's a little bit dangerous, right? So the ultimate goal is to have that sort of like seat at the table before the strategy is set, to become a true business partner, in that sense. So how do you shift that, or make that shift, or make sure that engineering, product, et cetera, has a seat at the table?
Well, that's sure. I delivering, right? I think it's two-part. It's you deliver and you build trust, and you build trust and you keep delivering. And we have our role, right? We're in technology. We enable. We might, if you're at a tech company, you are embedded more with the business. But if you're not, they still rely on you for whatever the services you are providing. So, deliver them. Back to my previous answer, reliably, consistently. Then you'll build trust. Then, as you're building trust, and you've proven, to call back to another answer, that you know the business, they'll say, could you just come to this meeting with me? We have another internal business partner, and our platform's running, and we'd like you to help us talk about how it's always running, and or something you've done. But once you've got that partnership, I always think of myself as a problem solver. I'm a partner that helps you solve problems, and that's what we do. And when you have that trust, we have a third. I ran B2C and B2B e-commerce, and we had a different division that ran on a non commodity platform, and they had some efficiency issues and cost issues. And their business partner said, hey, you could probably run on our platform. And they invited us to the table, and we were a part of the strategy. And now I run 250 of their sites on my platform because the business partner trusted me, because I helped them. They extended me to a peer of theirs, and we run their business now, right? And so I'm a cost center, but our platform's cheaper and, again, more available, and has features they didn't have that now helps them sell, right? But again, that all came from trust, partnering, being a friend with your business partner.
Okay, I'll answer real quick here. I think the one thing to me is like shared accountability. I'm sure, assuming that the majority of the people in this room are probably engineers or engineer leaders, and you probably have some crazy product counterpart, right, that's driving your roadmap. You have to listen to them every now and then. I think that if today in that context, watching, who knows? Yeah. No, but in that context, right? If you don't have like shared, defined goals, right, then there's a big problem, right? And a lot of that should be like tied to like, what are the outcomes, right, that you should looking to solve? Because believe me, maybe you are not thinking about like the things I mentioned earlier, right? That maybe are top of mind for your CEO or your CFO, but your CTO has that top of mind. So as you're like presenting like potentially needs, asks, etc., you need to your CTO or your leadership, that needs to come across like crystal clear. And the more important that you have that partnership with like product that maybe has more of a business mindset and outcome, I think the farther you actually go along together. So.
I love that. Well, this all resonates really well with me. I spend a lot of time, obviously, with developers, but I also spend a lot of time with director level, VP level type folks. And, especially I do a lot of women in leadership stuff. And so women, of course, were always like, well, how do we get a seat at the table? And how do we break into the C-suite? And I'm sure men have that conversation as well. But I would also say, right, like the thing that I hear sort of common is, focus on the business, understand your business. And just like everybody's, engineers are trying to get into AI, trying to learn AI, trying to whatever as well, exercising this muscle of like how to talk to business partners, how to, understand what business value you're providing to the organization. And even as an engineer on a team, you should also be asking those questions, because if you're not working on things that are true to the business, or you don't understand what business value you bring, even as an individual engineer on a team, on a Scrum team, then you're doing yourself a disservice, right? Because that. So thank you so much. These guys are amazing. Definitely look them up on LinkedIn or hang out with them and grab them after this talk. And thank you so much for joining us all.